changer for us. And that is my music, I guess, to say that I'm done talking. That was pretty amazing. Questions so far? Anybody want to say anything? Do you want to say something?
Thank you. Thanks, Sheriff. Hi, everyone. I'm Nina DiLorenzo from Indivior, and I'm just here to thank the Sheriff for leading on this issue. We know that synthetic fentanyl and the opioid overdoses are really, it's a scourge in our community. So I want to thank him for his leadership on this issue, helping us fight the overdose epidemic. And just want to say a little bit about OPV. The Sheriff will be the first in the country to carry OPV. So we're thrilled with that, and it's the first and only nasal opioid rescue medication that is specifically approved for synthetic opioids like fentanyl in addition to non-synthetic opioids. So we think this is a really important tool for law enforcement and other first responders to be able to carry. And as an Oakland County resident, I'm particularly thrilled that this is the first place that it's going to be deployed, and so we're really excited about that. As you know, law enforcement is critical. Like I said, they're often the first people responding to an overdose in our communities. So we want to make sure that they have every tool in the toolbox available to them to be able to do this, and let them choose what agents they want to use to do this. So we're looking forward to seeing how it works in the community and getting some feedback from the Sheriff and his deputies in the next, tragically, few days or a week to see how it's doing. So as an Oakland County resident, thanks to the Sheriff. On behalf of Indivior, thanks to the Sheriff and his deputies. We really appreciate your efforts to save lives.
How did the company and the drug hook up with the Sheriff's Office?
Well, first of all, I actually know the Sheriff personally from a long time ago because I worked on his very first campaign when I was in high school. But we have a network of people, both government affairs folks and sales folks spread throughout the country that are trying to raise awareness of OPV as a new agent because it was just approved in May and it literally just came on the market in October. So we're really trying to get out there, talk to people, let them know that it exists.
Is it a test essentially, or it's ready to go and it's going to
No, it's ready to go. It's available. It depends on state laws whether or not people can acquire it right away. So there are some states where it's you can just acquire it right away. Anyone can write a prescription for it for an individual, but to be able to deploy it in the community, the laws in the state have to be able to, it's called a standing order so that anyone can deploy it.
So it worked out well, the standing orders here in Michigan. So
yeah, he actually passed a special law to make it available. So we're excited about
Can you share, obviously it's tested out, it's authorized, FDA is approved, but is there an element to his question of, are you still looking for statistical data of how well it may perform in the field, or is it established in your mind and thus it's out, or help me with that?
Yeah, so every pharmaceutical, you want to see how it works in the community, right? Because as you get beyond your clinical trials, you'll see changes because you're in bigger populations. And there are also things that you can claim about your medicine or not claim depending on, what the FDA has approved it for. So yes, we definitely want to see, what it's doing, how it's working in the community. It will definitely work, but we want to see, what exactly is happening and get the results that, seeing it's, what it does, how quickly it works, those sorts of things. We know how quickly it works. It works, it has a long a quick onset and a long duration. And so we think it's going to be really effective for the current crisis.
Forgive me, I think you've answered it, but just to be clear, is there a proof of performance in the field that you will be anxiously looking at with this, or if you get the gist of the question?
Yeah, I mean, what we want to do is we can build additional evidence so we can say additional things about the drugs as we see it perform in the community.
I had one last question. Are you in a layperson sense able to share how this is better than Narcan, or what it does to the body to deal with fentanyl that makes it hopefully better performing?
So like I said, it's the first and only approved for synthetic opioids like fentanyl in addition to normal opioids. I can't compare it to another drug like Narcan, but I can say it has a quick onset of action and a long duration in the body. So that means that you can avoid you overdose once, you get brought out of it. If you're left like in a jail cell or something like that, you could overdose again if you don't have something in the body that is a long duration.
and I don't mean to sidetrack the news conference, but as far as the physiology of it, what happens in a fentanyl overdose to the body that this counteracts if you're able to supply a type of, because I'd be interested to know what it does physically.
So fentanyl depresses breathing, and so you want to reverse that right away. And if I get into the science of it, I'll mess it up, but I can get you with our people who can give you the specifics on it. But again, it has a quick onset of action and a long duration in the body, which is really important for the synthetic. The other thing is fentanyl is 50 times more potent than heroin. So, you know, something that's going to counteract the current crisis is really something that we think is needed in the community. Yep.
Sheriff, all the cruisers, all the deputies are gonna have this in the cars?
Yeah, eventually we're gonna push it out in a phased fashion. And to put a finer point on your question, how did this come about? I didn't even know Nina was with the company until they said she was gonna be here today. It actually came through our crisis team and our training and our emergency preparedness that is on the front end of trying to save lives. And I think they picked up information about what was going on nationally, brought it up to me, and I said, great, if it's something new that we can save more lives with, absolutely. And then we decided to go with announcing it, and I found out she was working with that company. So it actually came from a very proactive crisis intervention group, not, you know, I can't take the credit for it, and neither can the company's salespeople. It came through really great work on behalf of our team, and I want to thank them and applaud them for being proactive and looking for how we can deal with that. And to your question, kind of the lay person answer is basically you have certain kind of bodily functions that are not, you know, I have to consciously decide to do this. I don't have to consciously decide to do breathing. And those receptors in your brain that are kind of firing that automatically, they get impaired by the opioid. And the only one that can wipe off the synthetic opioid and stop that impairment is this, as a non-medical person, the way I understand it, if that makes sense.
And Oakland County Community Health Network is buying the first round of this, essentially, paying for it?
Yes.
How much is that costing?
$7,500 for the first wave.
How long will that last you, do you think?
I guess we'll see. You know, one of the things we don't know and haven't seen in our field is how many doses, you know, we've been using more and more and more doses of Narcan because it hasn't been effective. So, you know, potentially instead of using 3 or 4 without the same effect of Narcan, we may be able to use 1. That we'll have to see in the field.
Can you speak to the changing role over the last decade, less or first responders in regard to stuff like this? I mean, you know, people traditionally think about crime investigation, et cetera, but there's a different element and a different expectation now that's been laid in front of you, this being the latest.
Without a question, since I've been a police officer, our duties have immensely grown that now include terrorism and health activities and mental health crisis. I mean, law enforcement in America is the largest provider of mental health services in America. I think that's a tragedy. I think it's a failure of policymakers on the state and the federal level, but that's the fact. The largest mental health facility in America is the Los Angeles County Jail. And so, you know, as you look at all of the things we're doing, sometimes those are interconnected. It could be self-medicating. You know, there's a lot of crossover on those kinds of things between mental health crisis and oftentimes addiction. And so a very big part of our plate these days are filled with, you know, substance abuse disorder and mental health crisis. That has to be a very large percentage of what we do today.
If I may, one more in regard to, not that you would have metrics at your disposal, but anecdotally, do you, is this a pretty much a weekly thing? On a weekend, you can count on people encountering, and how do deputies and those in the field know what they're recognizing, if you will? But how often and how do they realize what they're dealing with to even act on it?
It's almost daily, tragically. And they know what they're dealing with and what to recognize because our training division teaches signs and symptoms. The physiological manifestation of what they're looking at. Is it labored breathing? Is there a host of these kinds of things going on? It's an indicator of this being a potential overdose from opioids. And the plus side is that these drugs don't have any huge negative impact on you, even if it's misdiagnosed. If it turns out not to be an overdose, but something else, this isn't going to send you into some other hole. This is going to help you if that's what it is, but it's not gonna hurt you if it isn't.
Sheriff, someone had, the start of this would be calling 911, getting a crew there, and then follow-up team would follow up, and that's how the ball gets rolling to helping it.
Typically we'll get a call that somebody's laying in the street or, unresponsive on a couch at home, and our deputies get there and they make a quick diagnosis and they administer the antagonist, and then hopefully it has results. And oftentimes they try again and again, and then ultimately if they can revive the person, get them breathing and conscious, then they're transferred over to medical care. Okay,
Is it out there as of today?
yeah,
We in the next week, within the week, right?
Yeah.
Within the week.
within the week.
You can see the clock. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's right there.
Somebody
Somebody
else want to talk?
I'm good.
Yeah, I asked him early, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, thank you.